All right, guys, we are back. We've got an incredibly special guest here for episode number 27. Ross, thank you so much for taking your valuable time to come out here and help our community.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm always happy to share anything I can with anybody out there. It's a sharing business, as you know.
Heck yeah. And, just so everybody here knows, like Ross has been someone I've been calling pretty much since I came into business. I don't know if you'll remember how we met, but we met. I was coming out there to pick up, your kids had grown out of a Mickey. You remember this, the
Yeah, I
cubicle?
do. Yeah.
And I stepped out and I was wearing some kind of name tag, and he's like, you're in real estate. And then I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, you got one thing figured out. You got the shoes, man. You got the
Yeah.
shoes. Cole Haan's the only way to go.
Still, all this time later, still the only ones I wear.
Yeah, me too. Me too. No, Hey Dude has come into the picture. Hey Dude has come into the picture.
I've not seen that. I have to check those out.
Yeah, they're comfy. They're almost like bed slippers, but you can wear them out.
Right.
But yeah, someone you've always been there, man. Like anytime I called you to answer or call me back, and there's a couple of people here locally that I've called since I came in and have been super helpful to me. So I'm excited for this episode to just break down some things you would do. But first, like let's there's gonna be some people that'll watch this that may not be as familiar, right? So what's your story? Like how did we get here today, and where'd you come from?
Sure. So I won't take it all the way back to the start, but I did move to the US in 2005. So came out here and pretty much was pursuing my own American dream, right? I think that's it's a cliche, but it's definitely something that in my case drew me out here, and got into real estate in March of 2006. So caught the tail end of the good market back then, and pretty quickly was on the downward spiral and was able to sustain through that. Thankfully, got very heavily into short sales. So really kicked off that and did about 50 or so short sales in the first year that I was doing those, and partnered up with some great people. And then about 12 years ago, decided to start building out a real estate team. So that was kind of a new concept back then. It started off with an admin, and I really didn't think I had anything for the admin to do. Bought them on part-time, quickly realized there was a heck of a lot for them to do. Took on my first buyer agent not long after that, and have kind of been growing it ever since. And it's been a really fun journey along the way. It's a people business on both sides of it, both the people that you deal with in your day-to-day work life, and then the customers as well. And it's just been a wild ride ever since. You know what it's like, man. I've been getting grays coming in the last couple of years, and the hair's starting to thin out at the back. The Rogaines coming out. So 16 years of real estate's catching up to me, but it's been a great ride.
I love it, man. I love it. And for the admin, I feel like this is something that is essential, right? It really frees some things up. But you touched on something that I feel like everybody. What could I use an admin for? And
Mhm.
how, like, was there a process for how you discovered what to give to the admin, or what happened there that you were like, wow, like yes, I can hand all this stuff off to the admin?
So it started off just being the stuff I purely didn't want to do. So it wasn't necessarily stuff you should or shouldn't give to an admin. It's just, I really hate doing this. I'm going to find someone else to do it for me. Now, obviously, as time's gone on, I've realized that's not the best way to do stuff. If I were to redo it again, I would handle it slightly differently. But I think in the first instance, you just do something. You got to buy back your time. If you're the guy, and I was literally taking my own photographs, uploading them into the MLS, updating the back end of my website. IDX was not a thing back then, so I was manually uploading listings to my website. So you have to buy back your time from somewhere. So no matter what they're doing, as long as they're doing something, they're giving you back your time. Now, obviously, as you get more into it, there's dollar producing activities that you want to be focusing in on, and then there's stuff that you can kind of break down into chunks. So what's a $10 an hour task? What's a $25 an hour task? $50, $100, and disseminate those out accordingly. But in the first instance, I would say now carry around a notepad. Every single time you do any single thing, you write it down. And at the end of a week, you look at every single task. And is it something that you keep? Is it something you hand out? Or is it something you get rid of altogether?
I love that. I love that. That was a huge nugget right there. And I kind of want to just tie that right in. So, premise of this show, right? We're talking to agents that are looking to grow their business. And you can frame this in any way you want to, right? It can be
Yeah.
you starting over, a new agent, whichever way you want to do it. but you're whichever way you want to go about it. If you wanted to go from 0 to 100,000 as fast as possible, what would you do?
Well, should we go down both those roads real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So for a new agent, um, I'm a little bit biased on this, but I would say the best way to do it, the quickest way to do it, is to join a team, and that's not because I own a team. I think that throughout the industry, if you're talking about going from 0 to 100, I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think it's the most effective way to do it, and I think it's the best way to do it for the majority of people. That doesn't mean they stay on a team for their whole career, but if you're talking about a springboard, I truly believe that's the best way to do it. You learn from somebody else's mistakes. I've made 16 years of them, and I would shudder to think, but probably hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mistakes.
Yep.
So use the clues that are there before, and pair up with someone that's made those mistakes, has the systems, has leads that can get you immediately up and running, but also is able to show you the foundation and fundamentals to put you in for the long run. So in my opinion, for a new agent, that's the best way of doing it. If I'm looking at myself and saying, how would I redo it now? If I wasn't going to join a team, I think that the fundamental principles are still the same. I think they change slightly over time and they get diluted a little bit, but your sphere and your database and the people is probably still the number one way of doing it. The difference is now that with the emergence of social media, or the rapid emergence of social media since I got into this, means that inevitably everybody knows 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 real estate agents. And so it's not just knowing those people, but being able to provide value to them and effectively communicate. Posting on your wall that you just sold a property is great. Being able to walk them down the path and educate them as to how they can own their dream home is a step further. And it's just always providing value to people. And that can look a lot of different ways. My passion is local food. And so, I want to, if we're inviting people into our community, I want to show them what the community has to offer. And so that's the way I do it. That's kind of my little free give back to the community, is going around and promoting local mom and pop restaurants. But that's all part of the process. You can't invite people in to live in our community and not be able to talk intelligently and provide value to them as to what the community can offer to them.
I love that. I love that. And I actually want to go in and dissect a little bit because this comes up a lot. And I think that I'm fresh enough with it that I actually started with a team, right? That was just 3 years ago. And Joel is the one who brought this up. He's like, man, like, so if you had to start over today, what would you do? And I'm like, well, there's two different aspects that we're talking about here. If I could start over and have everything that's in my head, then yeah, that's different, right? But like
Yeah,
what's in my head was somebody's 15-year career along with several other people that was condensed into a 1 year time period that I was able to absorb. So
absolutely.
like what are the other aspects of joining a team that helps somebody to accelerate in your eyes? Like what is it that breaks this down or simplifies for them?
So I think a lot of it is misuse of time. That's the most common thing I see when agents start out in the business, is that they are either distracted, so they're doing a lot of things that they don't have to do. And again, that's where writing down every single task that you're doing throughout the course of a week really comes in useful, because you can probably eliminate a third of that right off the bat. It's just not going to get you there. And then the second part of it is having an effective daily schedule, because if you're not doing the things that are going to move the needle, and obviously there's a lot less of those you have to do if you're on a team. It's prospecting, it's showing homes and writing contracts. But if you're not getting those tasks done early in the day, we all know in real estate how quickly your day gets away from you, and you have the best laid intentions of doing X, Y, and Z. You go out and show a home, and all of a sudden they show up with a list of 16 other homes from Zillow that they've seen that they didn't tell you about beforehand. And before you know it, you're making appointments on the fly. You're out until 6:30 at night, and those other things have gone by the wayside. So getting those true dollar producing activities done daily, so that if the rest of your day goes to hell, you've still had a productive day. Those are the things that I see people struggle with, not just on my team, but in general. When they get into the business, they think they should be doing something that really is not moving the needle for them.
I love that. I love that. And there's so much that people don't see about opportunity creation, but what you did here, you dropped a huge nugget, right? So people, when they come into this business, what are some things they can do? Because I know this because I was just fresh right there. Oh, I'm new. Like, I don't know if my friends are going to want a new agent. I'm not super experienced. I think this could actually tie in both directions. But,
Yep.
I feel like a lot of agents are scared to post when they're new because of these like insecurities, and what would you tell them to help them overcome that?
Well, so, and again, there's a difference between being new and being uneducated in the process, right? So always be a sponge. I mean, just because you haven't sold a house doesn't mean you don't know how to sell a house. There's a lot of free education out there now. You know, YouTube is huge. You can always hop on a webinar with some of the literal best minds in real estate, people that know far more than you and I will ever do. And they're available to people. So be a sponge to those. But of course, you know, being on a team gives you that kind of instant credibility. So I will definitely, you know, go out on the appointments with the newer agents, and being able to say, you know, we're on the team that sold 196 homes last year, instantly lends some credibility to that. But there's no reason that people should be scared to post that they're new to the real estate industry. I think that's an exciting time for people. I think as long as they go about it the right way and they have the correct knowledge behind them and the support system, and that can be your broker. It doesn't have to be a team leader. If you're going as a solo agent, it can be a senior agent in your office. A lot of offices are very well set up where they have awesome agents in there that have been 15, 20, 30 years in the business who just genuinely love helping people. That should be the culture and environment that you're signing yourself up to. And so, you know, lean into the people that have been there, seen it and done it, and are willing to help you along the way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And guys, I see we actually have 15 on, 16 on. Like, if you guys have questions as we're diving through this, like, that's the most fun part of doing these, right? Is where we can get live with Q&A. We can pull up the questions right here on the screen. So if you have any questions for Ross, please like drop them there. I'd love to segue this in the ways that your questions are going to. But what you just said there is huge, right? So like on our team right now, you know, like we have I believe 8 new agents on our team that are like
Yep.
fresh out the gate. And yeah, like that's huge to basically be able to say to somebody, hey, look, I want to sit down for a buyer consultation. My team leader will be here as well. Like, we're going to go in because we work as a team. We work cohesively in order to help you get to where you want to go. That's a huge thing to lean on as a new agent. But even if it's the second, right? Like, I have a core belief that I believe that there's always a better way to do this business. So
Yep.
every single day, and this is you, I mean, this is every top agent that I know is constantly reading on YouTube, finding things that are changing in the market. And in a market like we're going into right now, if you're not doing this daily and just seeing what other people are doing to handle it, it's going to be tough, man. Like, you got to reach out to those people.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get real for people real quick, right? You know, there's a lot of really, really good agents out there who have gotten into the business over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's funny, I saw something on Facebook last night. Someone had posted something saying, hey, for you guys who just got your license in the last 2 years, you know, it had a definition of a price reduction. This is what a price reduction means. This is what, and I'm like, yeah, because it's not something people are used to, right? So I commented underneath, wait until they learn about short sales. You know, it's having been through a couple of cycles of this, you know, you know certain things that are going to stand you in good stead in the shifting market. And again, there's enough education out there that people can educate themselves on it. That the ones who ultimately are not going to make it in this market are the ones that don't want to make the adjustment. You know, that the mindset thing is huge. Getting your mind right, realizing your shortfalls, as you know, you and I have talked about it over the last few days. I've had a couple of ahas, bringing on a new director of operations that have shown me I had a few more flaws and a few more chinks in my armor than I thought I had, maybe. So just being humble enough to realize your limitations and where you need to grow is a huge one, huge one. That took me maybe 10 years of real estate and a couple of versions of the team. I think I'm on, you know, 4.0 at this point, but the first 2 and 3 were a little bit better than the first one. But it was all pretty much from me thinking I knew it all, because, you know, I've done it not once now, but twice or 3 times. And this is the time where everything's going to be perfect. And I don't, you know, I'm doing it my way this time, and I don't need anyone's input. And that's a big one to get over.
I think you're hitting it too. So, you know, my coach, he kind of dives into that in a way where this question's asked to me about half, right? Half of our sessions. James, what are you best in the world at?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, you know, that can be one thing. It can be 3 things. For me, it's communicating, like being on the phone with people, being in person with people. It's motivating, and it's providing clarity on what to do. Right.
Yeah.
So those 3 things are my biggest strengths. And then it comes into all sorts of things, like Jen's right here in the room. She's probably going to laugh. I'm terrible at follow up. Like, if they're
Yeah.
not hot and ready right now, I have my brain will squirrel. Like my brain will go to all the cool things that I'm working on or I want to work on. And I mean, for follow up, I need another human being for that. And that's
Yeah.
where the question changes is it's not how can I do all these things? I truly believe it's who can help me do all these things. Right.
And let's go a level deeper on that, right? Because the big fear, and I think no matter what industry you're in, no matter what your background is, your disc personality is, I think everybody has the same problem. Nobody wants to hand stuff off to someone else because they can't do it as well as you. Well, first of all, you're probably not as good as you think you are. But second of all, it was maybe Nick McLean said it. If you can find someone that can do it 80% as well as you, give it to them.
Yep.
Let them run with it. Because if it's a building process. I didn't start off as well as I am today. This has been a continual growth and an evolution over time.
Yep.
So if my dad, when I started working out in real estate, didn't hand stuff off to me, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And
Yep.
so, finding people that have the ability to grow with you, but have that basic framework of knowledge, hand them off and let them fail along the way. Don't be afraid of having a few stumbling blocks because, like I said, I've made 16 years of them.
And that's one of the cool things about, collaborating, right? Is like you and I get on the phone, I get to learn from you. And you have this like this network doesn't stop, right? Like when you find people and you reach out and ask and you have a struggle, you have a problem that you're trying to overcome, it it's knowledge that I don't want to like it is free, but like it's it's the fastest way you can grow. It collapses time is the only way I can describe it is that if I can save you from a massive mistake, like I'm going to give you one that's just real quick because we hired a marketing company last year that I jumped into and I believed in it. I was
Mhm.
sold on it, but that one mistake cost me 20,000, right? Like that
Sure.
one mistake that I got nothing from. Like there was no garnish there. Like if I could save you from that mistake, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to save you from that mistake. Um,
Absolutely.
that don't be afraid to ask. Fran's jumped on here. Here we
Hey,
go.
Ron.
Fran's over here crushing it. She's always crushing it. Superstar.
She is. She is. I love seeing her success as well. That's awesome.
She's got an amazing heart too. Like she's
Yeah.
always wanting to help people and she comes from such a genuine place. Guys, who else got some questions in here as we're because we'll just keep rambling. I mean, but I'd love to see some questions drop in here, see if we can give you some clarity or direction on something that you're working on. That's the most fun part. When we can start literally interacting live with the people that are on there, it's a lot of fun.
So let me ramble for a second while people are working those out. So, some of my favorite phone calls that I get, aside from when I'm talking to folks like you and Kim and Christina and TJ and some of those guys, and is when an agent's calling me about trying to put a deal together on a property, right? Or they're calling me to schedule a showing or they have a question about a property. And then, at the end of it, they'll throw in a question. Hey, I really hate to bug you, but I wonder if I can just ask you a quick question. And, they'll ask me about, um, you know, uh, so and so has you as a reference on their website for their product. Can I ask you a little bit more about the product? Or, I have this problem I'm going through at the moment. If I can just pick your brain on it for a second, it might be someone from my brokerage, it might be someone from another brokerage. It really doesn't matter. But being able to grow them, but it grows our community, right? Because we all want to deal with good agents. And I
Yep.
think it was either you or TJ I was having this conversation with the other day. People always think, man, you guys are in competition. We're not in competition. You guys are the ones we want to do the deals with because we know it's going to run smoothly. When I see Christina Alonso on the other end of a deal, it's like I'm rubbing my hands with glee. It's like these are the people we want to be dealing with because they've been there, seen it, done it. They have efficient systems. So if we can grow our community, that's what we want. I mean, salespeople are one of the least trustworthy industries, statistically, when you ask people that is out there. We're below lawyers, and a lot of people don't like lawyers. And so, but it's a big difference between a typical salesperson and a professional salesperson. And
Yep.
so making that differentiation and pulling people, Chep always says that bringing people from the bottom up rather than, disseminating from top down is what's going to make all of us better.
Yeah, and I think you touch on something that really resonates for me, right? So I feel as though there's a large group of us, and you just named a ton of them, where our hearts want to see people win,
Hmm.
right? Like our hearts want to see them win, and this isn't just about I want you to join my team or something like that. This is literally like pure contribution, right?
Yep.
If there's something of value that somebody sees in your team, that's a whole separate conversation. But for now, let's figure out what are the next steps that you can take to grow your business right now, right?
Yeah.
and the rest of that is second nature. Like that comes secondary. And I think that that's a little bit where people may hesitate to reach out, but like our hearts are in that place, which is the most beautiful thing. Is you want to see that person win, and that's across the board. Everybody you just named.
Well, and I'll tell you something, that year I sold 50 something short sales, everybody hated doing short sales. And, for me, it's a point of contribution. It's like, here's a family that's losing their home. How can I help these people avoid the plight of the foreclosure and having a 7-year stain on their credit? And my desire was such to do it that I would literally drive around, because I knew that the avatar for those short sales was going to be homes that were built in 2005, 2006, that people had bought at the top of the market, had likely overextended themselves on, were likely just going to walk away from it because they didn't have a long emotional attachment with the property. And so I would drive around Sterling Hill, Trillium, Sandridge, Silver Ridge, a lot of those neighborhoods, look for a yellow pages being left on the doorstep, or overgrown yards, or signs that the property had been abandoned. Write down the address on a sheet of paper, go home, pull the information from the tax records, send them a letter through the mail, track them down as best I could to say, hey, someone's here to help you. Don't just let this house go into foreclosure. You might not understand the ramifications this is going to have for you over the long term. And that takes some swallowing of pride for homeowners to do that and reach out and ask for help. But I'll never forget, and it pops up on my Facebook every single year as a memory. I had 5 homes in Trillium. I had the 1, 2, 3 on one side, consecutive neighbors, and then 5, 6, 4, 5 on the other side next to it as well. And it was a picture, man. Like five under contract signs on 5 houses all in a row. Every single one of them short sales. And it was just a matter of the neighbor talking to the neighbor. And once they saw that this was okay for them to do, and it was okay to be vulnerable and ask for help, they all kind of jumped on and did the same thing. So, it's literally one person asking for help can change everybody else's mindset around them, and make it okay for everybody else to do the same thing. It's just kind of like a feel good story, or whatever you want to call it. But it's diving into the stuff that a lot of people don't want to do sometimes.
That'd be incredible to see that. Like, I'm just thinking about the 5 signs or the under contract. Like, that's like right there.
Next time it comes up on my Facebook, I'll screenshot it. I keep meaning to screenshot it every year, and by the time I think about it, it's gone, and it's 364 till it comes around again.
Yep. Well, you kind of brought up a thought though. So I feel like what we're dealing with now, from speaking to everybody else, is we're in a market where I don't know if I want to use the word greed for this, but we're in a market where sellers just, we look at the data, we see that the price this needs to be at to sell within the days on market that we're seeing from the data is maybe 350, and the seller's like, let's do 400. Let's do 4. I think 400 is the right price. And I feel as though this is one of the number one places where people have to educate themselves. But tell me, like what are you doing to combat that right now? Because I think we both know where that ends up, and it could even be an expired and lost in marketing.
Yeah, we do, and there's a couple, and it's going to depend on the seller, right, and their personality and attitude. But let's look at it a couple of different ways. So the first one is, I'm asking them where are they seeing that data. I'll say, okay, well, these are the comps I have. Do you have different comps to me? Let's see what you have, and dive into your data, and we'll see where that pricing comes from. But really, the better way, and this goes, you can do this on several different levels, but it's the path of self-discovery. Tell someone what to do; they're probably not going to do it. Let them discover what they should do, and that they're more likely to. So we'll take a long, hard look at the numbers. I've been tracking on a spreadsheet the week on week, 7-day rolling numbers for Hernando, Pasco, Hillsborough, Citrus, Pinellas, for new listings, under contract, sold, price reductions, withdrawn, expired. And so we'll look at those, and it's a very, very clear graph of where those numbers are moving. So then we'll go a step further. Okay, so we can see number of homes pendings going down, number of homes listed is going up. We can see the number of price changes as a percentage of homes on market, so we can see what percentage of the market is making adjustments. So if 1 in 10 homes is making a price reduction, where do we think the prices are going to go? Okay, go down. Okay, well, that's the list price. That's not the sales price, remember, right? And the sales price is on a 60-day lag, because the homes that are selling now were going under contract 60 days ago. So maybe they're not going down, but maybe they're leveling off. Does that sound right? Okay. Just asking them a simple question like, what's your understanding of the real estate market right now? And where did you get that information from? Because if they're saying my understanding is that homes are selling with multiple offers in the first weekend, Yes, that might be true in certain portions of the market, but if your home's $650,000 in Hernando County, that's probably not true of your home anymore.
Yeah,
So finding out what their understanding is, and not saying you're wrong, but saying, here's my understanding of the market and here's the actual factual data I have for it. Based on what I'm showing you, what's your understanding of the market now? And can we maybe take another look at where we're at price-wise?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, like so spot on. And I feel like something that, a lot of newer agents especially, but I feel like there's even seasoned agents that are still just taking the listing and not having this conversation up front. And the scary thing there is that they're really just hurting all parties by not
Absolutely.
having that conversation. And if you're afraid of somebody else coming in and just being a yes person, is your data right? Because really, where we're going is insecurity of, do you know how to pull the data, right?
Yep.
And that's something that you can cure. Like, that's a YouTubeable question, right? Like that is super easy to get through. Get clear on your data, and then you don't have that insecurity. Because if you walk out that door and there's another agent that says it's 400,000, and that's going to lead to an expired or possibly a sale price that is below where you offered originally, which is 350. Unfortunately, you got to let them experience it, and that's a pain, right?
That's a hot stove issue. You know, you can tell the kids the stove is hot until they touch it and burn themselves. Then that comes back to as well. That comes back to not just having the data, but being able to explain the data and where that means you're going. You know, so let's go back 6 months. You know, we're sat in an appointment with someone, and we're saying, okay, you could at that point say to them, what do you think the price should be? And they would probably be right.
Yep.
But you could say, this is where I think we should be. But my numbers then, and I know you've not been a fan of the CMA for a while. We do things a little differently, but we would look at the numbers and say, okay, based on where we're sat today, I think you could get, let's just say 375 for your home.
Yep.
However, here's what we know. We know prices are moving 3 to 4% per month. And we also know that it's going to take us a week to 10 days to get the home staged, get the photographs done, get them back, get it into the MLS. So now we're 10 days further forward. We know we're probably going to go under contract in the first weekend, but it's going to be 2 weeks for the appraisal to be done. So we know we're looking at the better part of almost a month here before that appraisal gets done. We know prices are moving 3 to 4% per month. So I don't want you to leave 4% on the table by the time that appraisal rolls around. So yes, we're 375 today, but 30 days from now, we're looking at X number. And having that intelligence around that data. Now we're working in reverse of that, but it's basically the same concept. And like you said, the agent that's going in there and taking it at 400 when it's worth 350 is really doing kind of everybody a disservice. It's like I said, it's going to get real for some people.
All right, we got a couple of questions here. Sharon, I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. So if they are firm and won't meet a competitive price, do you walk or do you take it overpriced? You want to go with this one first?
Yeah, well, so I have a very, very real life experience of doing this very recently. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to walk away, right? And but you know what? When that home value starts with a 7, and that little thing in the back of your head is saying, no, come on, you've been doing this 16 years. You can do this one. You can do this one. And so I just took one. I took one where I knew it was overpriced. I knew it was going to be a difficult transaction. And everything in my body was telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But the price started with a 7 and the little greed monster kicked in and I took it. And, sure enough, about 30 days into the listing, I ended up letting the seller go. And, the expectations weren't aligned. That's always going to lead to conflict. And so even after 16 years, still making the mistakes, but it's a good lesson for me. Because I would never have anybody on my team or never recommend another agent do anything I wouldn't do myself. But 9 times out of 10, I'm turning those down.
Yeah, same answer. Fran asked me because you touched on this. So I will prepare one. I'll be honest, if I do use one that I'm going to show to a client, I use Cloud CMA, which is right in Stellar, right? It's very simple to use. You just pull, but I manually pull that data. I want to make sure it's clear on here. Is that like I'm very specific on which houses that I'm going to use that are the closest comparables, closest in proximity. But what I will say is, because of what Ross said, it's very much about discovery, right? So I'll tell you what's more powerful when you sit with a seller. As long as you have internet, is actually walking them through
Mhm.
how you do this, right? Like actually it doesn't take that long, right? To do a CMA, I could do a CMA on a property in about 15 minutes. Walk them through how you're making these decisions on what house is defined and ask them, does that make sense to you? Like, is this logical to do it in this way? And get their permission to continue to do it, because then by the time that you get there, they've discovered it too, right? Like they were there for the journey. They gave the approval of how it walks through. But yes and no, right? If I feel like this is when I'm walking in and they're very they're already trusting, like they're looking for me to help them come up with a number. A CMA is already done. I don't need to take their time with this discovery process. Same if I bring it and it turns into an issue, I still shift over to that same process of breaking down the MLS and opening it up. I feel like that's the easiest way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, right? Is feeling them out, seeing where they're at. Sometimes I've been in the situation where it's a slightly more difficult property to price, so I've got a lot of data with me, and I can tell 2 minutes into it they're already glazing over, and so there's a
Yeah.
switch up in what you're looking to do. It has to be fluid. Fran, for to your point, Nathan's pricing class that he's doing is what I'm framing my pricing around at the moment. It's just a little bit different way of approaching it in the marketplace. And just to give it a 30-second overview, James, it's basically taking not just the properties that are 100 square foot in size, either size of yours, it's breaking down the entire market within that 1 mile radius. Because typically what you're going to see is the more expensive homes per square foot are going to be the smaller homes, because you get diminishing returns on additional square foot. And saying where, based on this, we can see homes in your price point are here, because they're always going to say, my neighbor down the street just sold for 450, and their neighbor's home's 500 square foot larger than theirs. So we can say, yeah, I know, but here's where those homes are. Okay. And they're actually less per square foot. So if you want, we can list that per square foot, but that's going to put you in that bottom range. We want to be up here somewhere. And having them have that aha, like, oh yeah, okay, maybe that's not quite so good then. The number looks good, but the price per square foot's poor. So it's all in the perception. I think we make a lot of assumptions that the general public have knowledge that they just straight up don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. That is 100% true. Oh, here's Josh and Victoria. Making the CMA differently, and it really changed a lot of the outcomes for me. Hey man, how do I get my hands on this training, man? I want
Hey,
to see.
come to the next one. I'm gonna have him do a one-on-one for our team. So I'll have you come along and check it
Yeah, I'd
out. I
love
think you'll like it.
And then Fran, yeah, that cloud CMA. I mean, maybe Ross, you would know, but I don't think it works with Flex. I mean, I'm in Flex,
It
and I don't
doesn't.
think.
I actually
Yeah,
just contacted them not long ago. They're not hooked into Flex.
that's there's another one. Have you ever used Focus First?
No.
Pretty cool. I think you being analytical and with that data, like it's cheap. It's like $70 a year or something like that. Basically, if you're gonna run a data set, it goes wide and then narrow. So like you can it encourages you to pull between 250 and 500 listings that are the conceptual market. This way you can measure like overall interest in that price point. And then inside of there is where you can actually dial down on which comparables you want to use for suggesting price. It's
Interesting.
wicked nerdy and wicked cool.
Yeah, that's right in my wheelhouse.
Here's a good one, right? This one you're gonna have fun with. I'm gonna let you dive into this one, Ross.
Oh, the AVMs.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, and the first thing to mention is that RPR has their confidence rating on there, right? So they have a 5-star confidence rating. Typically, when I'm putting stuff in RPR, which I will do just to kind of cross-reference it, because people are using AVMs if they're checking their Zestimate, or they're going on these websites, these portals, and pulling their values. It's all basically the same tool with a different name. So you want to know walking in there what their expectations might be. Listen, it's a great starting point for people. And so if people are using AVMs, I personally wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. I think that we as agents have so much access to so much more accurate and relevant data that we can really drill down on. That's really not a consideration, and that's not a slam at RPR. That's just going the step further and doing the stuff that maybe 80-90% of people are not doing out there. to differentiate yourself. For me, I'm a numbers guy. My background was in accounting back in the UK. So for me, everything makes sense in numbers, and I want to have the most accurate data available. And I just don't believe that's RPR.
I super agree there. And if you're looking for a quick reference, I think that this more so would come up on the buy side than it
Mhm.
would on the sell side. But one thing that I will do because it's fairly quick is I might hit like Zillow, Realtor.com, Realist. RPR is a great one. Their mobile app's amazing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Everybody
it
watching
is.
it, I feel like you should have their mobile app. And if they're all like within 10 grand, you're close. Like you're close enough, and you can dive in that later. Listing side, they're gonna ask you like, hey, my house, the house down the street, right? So like when you're about
Mhm.
to list the house within a quarter mile, you need to know every. It doesn't matter if it's comparable. You need to know every single one before you go in there, because that's
Yep.
gonna segue. And then well, hey, like I really want to talk to you about how that actually got discluded from what I'm looking at here, and you tell me if this makes sense, right? And same thing you're talking about with discovery.
Yeah, and that's obviously we know what
You have fresh
we've all been in
CMA.
those appointments. We've all been in those appointments. We have the moment of dread, right, where someone will say, "Yeah, well, Zillow says my home is worth X," right? And I think a lot of agents dread that
Yeah.
because let's face it, and I said this in our team meeting to our team the other day. The unfortunate truth is that Zillow does a lot of things in real estate better than the real estate agents do. And you can hate on Zillow, but that's just a simple truth. Their website is better than any other website out there.
Yep.
Yes, their estimates might be off. Yes, their data might be wrong. They'll get that right one day. Their customer experience is better than a lot of people's websites are. They do a better job at keeping in touch with your customers than you do,
Yep.
as far as sending them listings and market reports and news and education. So love them or not, Zillow's better at a lot of things than we are, and that hurts to say, but it is now a great appetizing moment when someone does say, well, Zillow says my home is worth X. And you can finally turn around and say, yeah, Zillow also lost $550 million in their last quarter that they bought homes based on valuations that they used on their own tool. So while it's a great place to start, the accuracy is maybe a little off there. And just
Yeah.
let that hang out there for a minute or two.
And I'm sure you've run into this. It comes up for me all the time. Like sometimes somebody's getting an offer from OfferPad, Zillow, one of those, and it's 50,000 more than what I think that they're going to receive. And even after all the fees, it still makes more sense, right? So
Absolutely.
move forward. Hey, if they're going to do that for you and it closes, like that is the best thing that you could possibly do for yourself. I just want to make sure that you know that if something changes with that, I want to be the guy that you come to, right? Like I think this is the best for you and your family. But on the backside of that, if something doesn't work out, they back out. We're still here to help you.
Well, I think there's a gap in the market there where it's changed a little recently because their pricing, obviously they've cooled off on their offers a little bit. They're not typically going in above the valuations that we're coming in with like they were maybe 6 months ago. We would walk into a listing appointment with the preliminary offer from Open Door and OfferPad. And
Yep.
so you've probably heard a lot in the news about companies like Zillow buying homes. I want to let you know I've done the due diligence here and I've come up with a preliminary offer. If this is a path you want to go down, we work with them. We close 4 or 5, 6 Open Door OfferPad offers. And so you're realizing that if people want this stuff, it's because they're providing something we don't provide. So partner with them and provide it for people.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And what a better way to start out your listing presentation than walking in with money. That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Hold on, I gotta write that down. So crushing it, man. There's been a lot dropped here. We still have 13 on. Guys, you have any last minute questions here before we wrap up? I just want to make sure. A lot of cool questions. And I love the engagement. I love people jumping on. And anything that you want to dive into but before we see if there's any last minute questions?
Well, if I can, I'll get a little philosophical at the end here. And I know you and I have had a discussion around this, and I've been doing it 16 years, and I've had various levels of success through that, and I've been through various chapters of my life along the way in my personal life. And the number one game changer for me was about 2 years ago when I hired my first coach. And when I hired my coach, in my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, I want them to tell me how to generate 1,000 leads and how to do this and do that. And I want the easy fix, right? Let's put 15 sales on the bottom line in the next 90 days, and let's get this thing rolling. And actually, what he is a mindset coach, and he was a master of it. And for the first week or two, I'm going through and I'm listening to what he's saying, and we're having these conversations. And it's really just not resonating with me, and I'm feeling a little bit of frustration around it because I'm not getting those 15 deals on the bottom line. And then over the course of the next 6 months, when we really dove into some of the mindset stuff, and I know I told you just the other day about, let's talk about it around recruiting as one instance. I don't want to bring more people onto my team because there's nobody out there that can is at the level of the Hardy team. And it's bullshit, man. They're out there, and the fact that what was holding me back was the fact that I was scared of making that next step, and I didn't want to share with them because I thought they might run off and do their own stuff. And it's such a horrible mentality. I will tell you that the number one reason people will fail, after all the stuff we've talked about today, is not having your mind right. And about 2.5 years ago, my now wife, then girlfriend, came to me and had concerns. I was a very social guy, but I was drinking too much, and it was, while it wasn't directly affecting stuff I did in my life, it wasn't a good side of me. And I wasn't being the leader I could be. I wasn't being the father I could be, and I wasn't being the partner I could be. And getting my mindset right around that. And I still enjoy a drink from time to time, but nothing like I did before. It really allowed me to kind of hit a hard reset and get my mind right. And it's been the biggest change in my career. And I see it time and time again. Getting your mind right, whatever that looks like for you, is going to be the difference between success and failure 100% of the time. Show me someone that's failing, and it's because something's, what happens in your personal life will show up in public eventually. It's because their mind's not right.
I can vouch for that 100%. And the coolest thing there, that's I don't know, I just want to point it out, is how vulnerable you are about it, right? Is so many people are scared to tell their story. But let me just tell you that there's people watching this, people are going to watch in the future, that are able to take away from that it's okay to be open and vulnerable and describe your story. And that's really what it's all like. That's beautiful. Josh, and I don't know if it's Josh or Victoria or both, dropped, we are going to go off the rails here. Just going to let you know that right away before I pull this up, because you got two team leaders and we want to talk about a marketing budget.
Cool.
This is going to get intense right now. I think both of our stomachs just hurt.
Good night. How light is too light when it comes to a marketing budget? Well, let me ask you, Josh, real quick, or Victoria. Are you talking about on a per listing basis, or are you talking about broad scope per month on every facet of the business?
He'll drop that in there.
My biggest eye opener was I used to spend a ton of money on leads and everything else. I went into a listing, didn't get it. I always call the people after and say, hey, I respect your decision. So-and-so is a great agent. If I can ask you why you didn't choose me. And they said, you don't do much marketing. And I said, well, respectfully, I disagree. We do a ton of marketing. We do X, Y, Z and everything else. And he said, yeah, that's for you. That's not for my property. Absolutely. Yep. So it's back to the drawing board, and let's promote individual properties.
Yep, 100% there. I don't think
go on.
The marketing spend is not real intense per listing, though, right? Like, I mean,
no.
Do you have that dialed into like a relative range of what it is?
Yeah, so it'll depend. On the lower end, every listing costs me about $700. That's for pictures, the admin time to input it and close it out when it happens, the sign going in the yard. Everything around that. We'll do a $60-$70 Facebook targeted boost. So we're running adverts across social media. We'll do our email blasts to the agents, email blasts to our database. We have a pretty cool tool on the back end where we can punch in an address and it'll bring up everybody in our database that's looking for something around those parameters. So I factor in the cost of the CRM and those tools into that as well. On the higher end, it's about $1,100 per listing that we're spending.
Yeah, that's dead on. It's same. And I want to spin off because I feel as though this question is actually backwards if we're talking about it the other way. Like, this is about lead generation, business growth, right? I feel like this is not the right question. It's what is my cash conversion cycle and what is my conversion rate to figure out what my return is going to be. Proof of concept, right? So like you go start with those three things, then you
Yeah.
dive in, you commit. What is the proof of concept? Is my ROI higher or lower than what I expected? And then I mean, my number is really somewhere between 5 and 7x. Like if I can
Yep.
get 5 to 7x after splits and everything, like I'm pretty solid on that, because what that means is, okay, I spent 1,000 and I generated 5,000 in revenue. Um, so if I spend 10,000, I can generate 50,000. Like once you have that system, I don't think the question is like too light. It's how far do you want to push, and then you run into other problems that come. Right? Do you have enough hours for yourself, or do you need somebody else to step in to supplement in order to continue to scale? That's where you start to scale.
You
Is
took the words out of my mouth. It's not about how much should I spend. It's about what should my ROI be. And if your
Yep.
ROI is the same, you keep spending more on it. As long as as long as you have that whatever whatever threshold you're setting. If you're setting a 4, 5, 6 time return on investment, as long as you're still getting that, you will get diminishing returns the more you spend. But as long as it's still within your range, you keep spending money on it.
And just a plug here, right? If you're not following Nick McLean on
Yeah.
Facebook, you need to be, right? He made a post the other day that touched on this, right? He was asking himself if he should hire an ISA to follow up the leads. This would be another question about marketing. But where it went to him is, okay, 2,500 for an ISA. If I applied that to 2,500 for call nights, or 2,500 for, I believe he used
Past clients.
community events, past clients, like that, what would the return be on that? So like, don't be afraid to be creative with that idea. Is what that showed me. But I would definitely follow that. He's always posting gold, man.
Well,
Like,
I'll do one more of his that he did it, which was written so well. I spent about 2 days trying to write an email, and he dropped one in my inbox that after the second day, and it's about how to 6x your ROI on lead sources. If you gave an agent 30 days and 100 leads, what would their conversion rate be? Within
yeah,
30 days, it would probably be 0% because no one's buying a home and closing in 30 days. If you gave it to them for 14 months, his team averages 6% on those, but it's a long game. And
yeah.
so having, like you said, having the time to invest and the systems in place to follow up effectively is a big difference between 0% and 6%. 6% doesn't sound like a sexy number, but 6 times the amount sounds pretty sexy.
Uh, I think 6% on a conversion on leads is, yeah. I mean, as you really start to dive into that, if we were at 6% on all of our lead sources, I'd be doing backflips. I mean, that's a good number. Like if you can get yourself to 6% on, if it's Sphere and you're at 6%, or like referral, you're at 6%, you
Give
need
up.
therapy. Yeah, you need
Yeah.
something, right? But if this is a generated from Realtor, Zillow, Google,
Yeah.
Facebook,
Facebook.
whatever, like
Yeah.
6% is gold. But yeah, man, that was a great question. I knew we were going to segue there for a little while, because that's Nick McLean, McLean. And really the one you want to, if you just type in Facebook real estate greatness, that's the
Yeah.
one you really want to be in, is real estate greatness.
He looks like a young Lex Luthor, so you'll know it's him.
Oh yeah, you can't miss him here. I'm gonna see if there's a share button on this real quick. I can't. Yeah, there's not a share. Let me see if this works. Drop that in there for him. And we actually just started one of these as well. I'm gonna drop that in here too. Yeah, man, dude, you're awesome just for being here and taking your time.
Oh man, I love chatting to you. So this is a pleasure for me this morning.
Yeah, it's a cool way to start things off. And I loved, I mean, I'll be honest, the engagement here has been really high. Like we have 15 people still live on here. And one thing I love about doing the show is we get to bring in just so many incredible people that are dedicated to impacting other people. And that's at my heart, man. Like that's thing that wakes me up, thing that keeps me going, is not actually selling houses. It's what can I do to help somebody else change their life, whether they're in real estate or not.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Thank you everybody for jumping on. Thank you for jumping on, and
Yeah,
keep crushing it. You and everybody else that's watching.
absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on, James. Appreciate it.
You got it, brother.